Welcome to Vinyl Dens on channel 33 RPM. This is the monthly segment where we check out cool music rooms from across the vinyl community and around the world. All right, this first one comes from Steve Andrews, and Steve writes, I'm from New South Wales, Australia. I'm 56 and I have converted our granny annex into a bar/music room called the Nag's Head. Check this one out. This one is crazy, man. Steve writes, we moved here from England over 16 years ago and brought our records with us. He says, I've been collecting records since I was 15 and still have the first records I bought with my own money. Now I have around 3,500 records and I love them all. Even if I don't play them, they're a window into my past. That's so true, right? If you've had a record long enough, it's got a story to tell. Every record has a story to tell. Steve writes, I have everything from classical to jazz to metal, prog, psychedelic to reggae and more. I don't restrict myself to genres as much as I just buy what makes my ears happy. Guilty pleasures don't exist here. Another great philosophy, right? Anyway, let's dive into this. Steve says there are actually two rooms. He says the record room used to be his daughter's room, but now she's married, so he needed something to do with the space, and why not make it into a music room, right? That makes total sense. In that room, he says the turntable is a Wand 14-4 with a Songbird moving coil cartridge. It's a beautiful and certainly not a cheap turntable. And there's also got a Project Tube phono stage and a Yaquin, Y-A-Q-I-N, MC100B tube amp. That's a cool looking tube amp, man. And that's played through a pair of Krix acoustic speakers. Krix, K-R-I-X. I wasn't familiar with that brand, but I believe it's an Australian company. Now let's go over to his main room, man. This is wild. He's got a bunch of turntables here. I'm not going to go through all his gear because there's so much, but his turntables include a Technics SLQ6. He's got a Thorens TD321 and a Lin Access turntable. And this is interesting, a Mitsubishi X10 vertical turntable. I can't say I've ever seen one of those. Steve writes, the records on the ceiling. He's got a ton of records on the ceiling there, man. He says the records on the ceiling were a bunch of old records I rescued from the tip. It must be Australian slang. I'm not sure what tip means. Maybe the garbage dump, something like that. He writes, none of them are playable, so I used them as dividers in my record storage, and the others I hot glued to the ceiling. I love it. He says, the bar itself, I built the bottom, and my brother, being a carpenter, did the canopy on a visit here. Steve writes, I collect glasses from all over and have put them on shelves behind the bar. There's so much going on here, man. I don't even know where to start. He's definitely packed the room from floor to ceiling and from wall to wall. Very cool, Steve. Thank you very much for saying this. I dig the space. Okay, 33ers, when it's time to take your vinyl den to the next level, you gotta check out the record storage consoles from Sidetracked Workshop, the sponsor of today's video. They handcraft quality all wood furniture in the USA. It's not flat packed or bolted together. These record consoles come to you fully assembled. You only need to screw on the feet, and shipping is always free in the US. You spend a lot of time and money on your record collection. Show it off proudly in style with these beautiful mid-century modern designs. Head over to sidetrackedworkshop.com to learn more.
Channel 33 RPM.
All right, this one comes from Dave. Dave is another basement dweller like myself. Not that I live in the basement, but I do spend a lot of time here hanging out, listening to tunes, all that kind of stuff. Dave writes, I'm 58 and from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, USA. He's a longtime music fan who loves rock, blues, jazz, classical, and is always looking for new music. That's awesome, man. No matter how old you get, no matter how long you've been doing this, at least for me, I think it's important to always be looking for new music, because life would be boring, right? If you kept listening to all the same stuff all the time. It's all about finding new music, at least for me. Dave wrote, these are my photos of my lounge. He says, I was an idiot and sold my vinyl in the late 80s to buy compact discs, man. I've heard that so many times from so many people. So Dave, you're definitely not alone. He writes, for the past 5 years, I've been putting that collection back together and then some. Looks like he's done a pretty good job here. I dig the room, man. I like the guitars on the wall. I like even just coming down the stairs. That brick wall is cool, man. The wall of records. I like it. What else does he write? My system is from the early 90s. He's got some JBL speakers powered by Denon amp. He says it will shake the street outside. That's very impressive, particularly because Dave is in the basement. He says he's been putting this area together for the past 2 years. It is my office and cave, he writes. I have a hard time leaving it each day. It's only one needs, man. I can see why you have a tough time leaving. Looks like a cozy, awesome hangout space. Okay, this next one comes from Brandon, and this is such a nice looking space, man. Brandon writes, greetings from Apache Junction, Arizona. I think I said that right, Apache. Brandon writes, my vinyl den isn't really a den at all, but rather a dining area that we had no use for, so the music became the center of the house. I love it, man. It's a comfortable place to sit, have a beverage, usually Maker's Mark, but Crown Royal is available. Brandon is saying that because I'm a Crown Royal fan, of course, but I also dig Maker's Mark. That is good bourbon. What else here? Brandon writes, my equipment is minimal and all from Fluence, the RT85 turntable with the Ortophone 2M Blue cartridge. Again, I've said it once. I've said it 100 times. The Ortophone Blue is probably one of the most popular cartridges I see in these videos. It also has a Fluence PA10 phono preamp and the A181 tower speakers. This is interesting. He says, although I owned a few records, I didn't start collecting until COVID hit in 2020. He says, I've been a huge Kiss fan for my whole life, so I thought, why not buy all the albums on vinyl? Hey, why not? He writes, probably should buy all the singles as well. Yeah, of course. And maybe some bootlegs too. Why the hell not? Brandon writes, wait, they release these in different variants all over the world. Maybe I should go ahead and buy every album for every artist I've ever liked. Obviously, he's joking here, but record collecting really can be this rabbit hole where you start here and just keep going down, man. He says he has 717 12-inch records and 148 7-inch singles, with another 300 plus LPs on his want list. Awesome. Brandon, I love the space, man. Thank you for saying the pics. This next one is interesting, and it really speaks to the global reach of this channel, which continually blows my mind. This comes from a viewer in all places of Moscow, Russia. And I'll put his name on the screen here. It's in Russian, but I put it through Google Translate and came through as Sergey. So I'll say it came from Sergey. And it writes, hello, Frank. I am 50 years old, live in Moscow, Russia. It's been 3 years since I became interested in music again after a break since 1990. He said it started with Panasonic audio cassettes and tape recorders. Then I bought hi-fi from Technics. Currently he has 3 Technics cassette decks. He has a Technics amplifier, a Technics CD player, and a Panasonic DVD player and Samsung Blu-ray player. And his speakers are KEF 350s. Then he says, about 6 months ago, he became interested in vinyl records, and he bought a turntable. Again, I believe it's a Technics, an SLD33. So he says he doesn't have a large collection, about 700 audio cassettes, 100 CDs, and not many records. So this is interesting. I can't say I've ever seen or had a submission from Russia before. It's cool that ultimately at the end of the day, as music fans, man, that's what we are, right? We're all music fans, and deep down we're all into the same stuff. Sergey, thank you for saying this over, man. All right, this next one comes from Max. And Max is 14 years old and lives in Melbourne, Australia. Man, I love getting these submissions from younger viewers and teenagers. It just gives me so much hope that this hobby and this passion for music is in good hands, right? Because you need young people to get into this if you want this to continue on. So that is awesome, Max. Thank you for saying this. Max writes, I started collecting about 3 years ago, but I really started buying stuff last year. His turntable is a Audio-Technica LP120X Bluetooth turntable. He says it's great, and he runs that through a Marantz NR1200 receiver. He listens mostly to rock, indie rock, alt rock. His music room is his bedroom. He says originally it was supposed to be more of a game room, but he's converted it to a music room. He owns about 120 records, but is hoping to improve the collection. I love this, man. I love it, Max. You're off to a good start, a great start in record collecting. And again, it's so encouraging to hear from young collectors, man. I hope to hear from more young collectors. Max, keep it up, man. Awesome. I have a couple more vinyl dens I want to show you, but before I get to that, I want to let you know that if you're interested in submitting your vinyl den for consideration for a future episode, there's a bunch of information below this video that you need to know. So go check it out and then send me your stuff. All right, this next one comes from Freddie, and Freddie is another basement dweller. He writes, I moved into this house a few years ago and my wife said, do whatever you want with the basement. So I decked it out to reflect my love for music and film. Very cool. Two of my favorite things, music and film. Freddie writes, I have about 500 LPs, 200 CDs. I have lost count of the Blu-ray, DVD movies I've been collecting for years. He says his setup is a patchwork, but it does what I need it to do on the cheap. So he's got a bunch of gear here. I'll quickly run through some of it. He's got a Denon receiver, a Technics SL-D1 turntable, some Energy speakers. I believe that's how you say it. He's got a Technics 5-disc CD player. He's got a JVC cassette deck. Bunch of cool stuff. Freddie writes, I absolutely love your YouTube channel. Thank you very much, man. He says, when watching it, I feel like I'm listening to a buddy talk about the same stuff I love and hold an interest in. Awesome, man. That is my goal when I do these videos. I'm just talking to everyone on the other side of the lens, like we're hanging out at a pub having a drink or hanging out in a music room and chit-chatting. Love it, man. Freddie, great space. I appreciate you saying this over. All right, this one comes from Dan, and Dan is 39, and he lives in the UK, and man, I always mess this up. He's from Worcestershire. When we have the Worcestershire, when we have that sauce, I just call it lean parents because I can't say that word for whatever reason. So we'll just say Dan from the UK. He says he's been collecting since he was about 12 years old. Currently, he has 771 records and over 2,600 CDs. He says his Dan is actually a converted garage that sits as part of an extension on the side of the house. It features acoustic soundproofing built into the walls, so you can really blast the music. He says his den also doubles as a recording studio. Very cool. In terms of gear, man, he's got a ton of stuff. But I just want to stop for a second on this Clear Audio Concept turntable. I've always loved those turntables. That is beautiful, man. He's got an Audio-Technica AT33 PTG2 moving coil cartridge on that sucker. A bunch of other stuff here. Amps, CD player, cassette deck, network player, a bunch of stuff. Very cool, man. Good job, Dan. I love it. All right, another one from the UK. This is from Phil. He's 55 years old and he lives in Manchester. He writes, I live in a small house and my downstairs living room / dining room serves as my listening room. My upstairs bedroom houses most of my 4K Blu-ray and CD collections. He says he has about 300 records, 800 CDs, 2,000 4Ks, Blu-rays, and CDs. He says his hi-fi includes a Cambridge Alva, I believe is how you say it, ST turntable. Beautiful. It's got a Cambridge Audio CD transport, a Cambridge Audio amp, and KEF speakers. Phil, thank you for saying this. I dig the space. All right, 33ers, let me know what you thought of today's episode in the comments below. Thank you for watching. I will be back again really soon. Until then, keep on spinning.